Hello, and welcome to the Being Human podcast, where we explore what it means to be human, physically, mentally, and spiritually. If you're new here, or especially if you're returning and you have not yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you do not miss any of these episodes. On this episode of the podcast, I sat down with Aoun. Lucas is an expert when it comes to supplements, and this conversation was all about that. This really was a masterclass by Lucas on his area of expertise, and the supplements that Lucas was educating me on weren't the usual supplements. It wasn't just creatine, vitamin D, magnesium. We really went into some nuanced, lesser discussed areas, and some of these supplements Lucas was recommending for athletic performance, for DHT, testosterone, were supplements I've never even heard of. This was a really cool conversation. Lucas gave me plenty of supplements to go away and research and experiment with. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you do, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment below, share it around on social media, and hit that subscribe button as well. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure to hit that follow button and rate the show 5 stars. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting Being Human. The Being Human podcast is brought to you by Aoun protein bars. These are fantastic. I'm not a fan of protein bars. You know me, I love to eat real whole foods, but Aoun protein bars are just that. These are grass-fed beef bars. They're completely natural. They're not full of a load of garbage that other protein bars are. These have really been a game changer for me, helping me fuel post-workout, pre-workout in a quick, easy and efficient manner without compromising on the quality of the foods that I eat. I take these with me everywhere I go. I love to snack on a couple straight after a workout. The protein that you get per bar for the calories that are in them is pretty insane. You're looking at less than 150 calories in a bar and 18 plus grams of protein. So they're fantastic when you're looking to stay lean, make weight if you're a weight cut athlete. My favourite flavours are these smoky paprika, almond and cranberry bars, and the apricot and crunchy hazelnut flavour too. To pick up some bars for yourself, all you need to do is to head to roamfood.com and use the code Aoun10 to get 10% off your order. That's roamfood, ROAM food.com, and use the code Aoun, ARUN, all caps, 10 to get 10% off your order. The Being Human podcast is brought to you by Mr. Bassett's Grappler's Coffee and Mr. Bassett's Grappler Soap. Mr. Bassett brings you quality, natural goods that are going to nourish you, not harm you. Grappler Soap is the soap to use if you're a combat sports athlete to fight off those skin infections, keep them at bay, and stay smelling fresh for your training partners. And Grappler's Coffee is the coffee to get you caffeinated so you can continue to wrist lock, punch choke, and oil check your training partners into oblivion. All you need to do to pick up these goods is to head to mrbassets.com and use the code WAG10 to get 10% off your order. That's mrbassets.com, WAG, all caps, 10 to get 10% off your order. And now presenting Being Human with Lucas Aoun.
So obviously, I really wanted to get into the nitty-gritty of supplementation, Lucas. But one thing I am interested in to start off with is how you actually got into the work that you do. What's your background? How did you find your way to being a professional supplementer, a professional supplement maker?
Yeah, man. Well, I've always been interested in understanding the human body, and especially in the context of athletic performance. I mean, I used to play semi-professional soccer myself, and one of my goals was always to make it in the English Premier League, to play for Chelsea one day. And then, unfortunately, well, some people would say unfortunately, I would say fortunately, that dream came to an end, and I fell in love with this idea around biohacking and self-optimization. And I basically was I started studying naturopathy. So I'm a fully qualified naturopath. And that basically means that you understand nutrition and you also understand herbal medicine and supplements. And during the time when I was studying naturopathy, I actually worked in my father's pharmacy. So I got experience, and I was, titled as like the vitamin specialist. So just, obviously I studied vitamins extensively. And then I started creating a lot of content on Instagram and on YouTube and creating podcasts. And yeah, till this day, it's one of my main goals is to provide, cutting edge health information that people struggle to find on Google. So, only recently I just, released my own supplement brand. But up until this point, it's literally just been like purely consistent education, staying back after university, creating, Instagram posts. So yeah, that's been my journey so far.
What do you think most people misunderstand when it comes to supplementation, or how do most people misuse supplements?
That's a fantastic question. So I'd say a lot of people view supplements as a quick fix sort of thing. But what happens when we look at supplementation? I mean, a lot of people make mistakes when they're looking and trying to understand the labels and the claims that many supplements make. Now, especially when it comes to looking at different dosages of different ingredients, I would say the number one supplement mistake that people make is selecting a product that has a proprietary blend, which basically means that the product has, like, let's say 6 ingredients, and it says, let's say 1,000 milligrams, but they don't actually disclose exactly how much of each ingredient is found per serving, which means that the supplement company could basically just put in, maybe like 1 milligram of, I don't know, ginseng, 1 milligram of ginger, 1 milligram of cinnamon, and then do like 997 milligrams of like something else. So they can, and the consumer, it's hard for the consumer to understand this. But this is something that I'd suggest that people try to avoid, is proprietary blends.
That's very interesting. I'm slightly aware of that, but I wasn't aware of how much of a difference that can make. When it came to the process of starting your own supplement company, how do you go about that? I mean, without giving away the secrets, obviously, how do you go about, first of all, thinking of a supplement in terms of what you want it to do? I assume, first of all, you think, I want a supplement that's going to increase testosterone or increase DHT, increase free testosterone, whatever it may be. Okay, these are potential ingredients that could go into it. I'm then going to literally go through a process of trial and error. And are you trialing it on yourself? And you're like, do you have, volunteers trialing this? How do you find out that, okay, this supplement's going to work, and then this is the best way that we can package it? Obviously, like, you've got to consider things like binders, etc., right? Which ideally we don't want in supplements, but sometimes we need. Talk to me about all those considerations, taking it from an idea into like the actual product that then we're able to consume and benefit from.
Yeah, man, it's a pretty long process, coming from like idea to the actual spawning of the entire company, and then the physical product actually being made and delivered into customers' hands. So fortunately, we live in a world where there are many different supplement manufacturers around the world. So accessibility to a supplement manufacturer is quite easy. Probably the hardest step for us was actually coming up with our brand name. And our brand name is INB4, INB4. I don't know have you heard that acronym before on you've probably heard of that on forums and things like that. So INB4 is a really like a great name, because it's basically framing us as like we're releasing ingredients in before everyone else is, like new and novel ingredients in before everyone else is. And that's something that I really pride myself on, is being able to identify like new ingredients, doing the research, understanding the literature, and seeing that this particular ingredient has potential use and application for, let's say, energy, focus, testosterone, increasing DHT, reducing estrogen, things like that. So I would say one step that a lot of supplement companies completely skip and bypass is third-party testing. That basically means that you don't rely upon the supplier's authenticity report to prove that it's actually the right ingredient. You literally send it off to a separate company, completely not related, to get it checked to see if it's actually what you want it to be. And that process there took us 9 months to actually find the particular herb that I was after, it's a Brazilian herb called catuaba. which I think is going to be probably one of the most popular herbs in 2025. Mark my words. And so that process there took quite a long time. So between the name, product testing, and then first of all determining whether or not that ingredient was going to be a good starting ingredient, that's like a higher level of awareness in terms of understanding what the consumers, what the current supplement market lacks. And so I identified that there was no high quality, in my opinion, there was no high quality Catawba extract available to the US and to UK and to Australia, and all over the world, really. And so I thought, you know what, let's package it up, make it more a modernized version with the brand name in before. And then, yeah, like we literally launched about, I think it was like 8 weeks ago now. So yeah, it's been a fun journey so far.
That's awesome. So again, another point noted in my mind: beware of proprietary blends and make sure the supplement is third-party tested. How do I pronounce that? Catawba.
Catawba. Yep, exactly.
Catawba.
Yep.
Okay, that's really interesting. I'd never heard about it before. I came across you and your brand. So if you could just go into the kind of like the history of the herb, the proposed benefits.
Yeah, sure. So Catawba is native to Brazil, and they call it as an aphrodisiac. So basically, a herb that increases sexual desire both in men and women, and it's believed to work by stimulating blood flow to the genital, like obviously to the genital region, and also working on the dopamine system. Now, this has a dynamic effect, because something is considered an aphrodisiac. Doesn't necessarily mean it just works as an aphrodisiac. It also means that it supports a healthy mood and a positive mood. So that's because it's believed to work on that dopamine pathway, actually optimizing the dopamine system, acting as a dopamine reuptake inhibitor, meaning that it keeps dopamine active in your brain for a longer period of time. So people who have used Catawba have reported feeling more upbeat, feeling more social, feeling more positive, feeling more confident, and just having a bit more like oomph and vitality for their day, and also bedroom performance benefits as well. And historically, they used to say that Catawba basically it translates to what gives strength to the man. So that's how they historically used to, describe the unique benefits. And, there's even ancient shamans were using this as a herbal extract for, supporting, different types of spiritual practices and things like that. So it's historical usage and traditional use in South America and Brazil. Like if you go to Brazil now and you mention the herb, almost everyone will know that you're, wanting to have a good time if by asking for this herb.
It sounds almost like the South American Sistanch.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Very similar. Yeah, no, I find it super interesting. And I guess like just to speak about it openly, like those kind of historical stories always sound great from a marketing perspective, because that's I remember when I first heard about Sistanch, it was like marketed as the Genghis Khan sex herb. This is basically the herb that allowed Genghis Khan to sire a quarter of the world's population today. But yeah, I think it also speaks to as well, whenever you have a supplement that's a herb or a compound that has been utilized by humans for centuries, for millennia, it obviously speaks to the fact that it's incredibly powerful and it's got some real potency and ability to benefit you or to impact you in some way or another. Let's get into some different compounds that are typical for people to supplement. This one is, I suppose, we'll start to get a fairly basic level, but vitamin D supplementation is something that when the Big C came about 5 years ago, within the first year, a big line of recommendation by doctors was you need to be supplementing vitamin D. So much of the world's population, especially in a country like the UK, in which I reside, are vitamin D deficient. And that was kind of like the party line we were told: 4,000 IUs a day. That's going to be really impactful, and I think that is definitely true. But as I've gone on through the years, I then started to become that person that supplemented with vitamin D a lot. As I've then gone on through the years, I've realised that maybe vitamin D supplementation, it's not as simple as just taking your vitamin D supplements. It's really not a substitute for the sun. I mean, the sun provides so many benefits, but even just in terms of vitamin D production, it's just nowhere near the same. What's your stance on supplementing with vitamin D?
Yeah, great question. So vitamin D, I actually like to call it hormone D because it's actually a hormone. And now, so if we look at the main benefits of adequate levels of vitamin D, and that is when you get a blood test, usually hopefully your doctor orders vitamin D, and hopefully you get it checked at least once or twice a year, because vitamin D levels do fluctuate. And unfortunately, vitamin D is not found in adequate amounts from food, and therefore the next best place to soak up, synthesize vitamin D in the body is actually through sunlight exposure. You're correct in saying that. I personally do agree that sunlight exposure is the best way to increase your vitamin D levels without sunscreen. Sunscreen is not a good way to, in my opinion, I think it's not beneficial if you're trying to increase your vitamin D levels. And also most sunscreen is toxic, which can, lower testosterone and actually increase cancer risk. So vitamin D, I mean, man, you mentioned, the pandemic. I mean, vitamin D stood out there, of course, because those that had lower levels of vitamin D had worse outcomes when they had the virus. And those that had higher levels of vitamin D actually were more protected against severe hospitalization, things like that. It also applies with the common cold. It also applies with the flu. It also applies with many other viruses. So in general, if anyone's listening to this, they should be trying to get their vitamin D on the upper end of the reference range. And that can differ depending upon the lab that you work with. But usually it's around 150 picograms per mil. And so typically what happens is, if you can't get enough sunlight exposure, and that's completely fair enough, because some countries, they don't have sufficient amounts of sunlight exposure. We were just talking about this in the UK. That's where a vitamin D sun lamp can actually be beneficial, 3 to 5 minutes per day. And then if you don't want to do that and you'd rather use a supplement, then a vitamin D3 K2 liquid made by Thorne is your best bet, and usually around 5,000 IU. Now, where people go wrong is they take their vitamin D before bed. It should never be used before bed. It should be taken in the morning with your first meal, a meal that contains fats. So in general, vitamin D3 can do a lot if you're in a deficient state. So for example, if you go from very low vitamin D to then replenishing your vitamin D levels to optimal status, that by itself can lead to an increase in testosterone. It can lead to a reductions in stress hormones. It can lead to improvements in mood. There's many, many benefits of having optimal levels of vitamin D.
I think vitamin D is probably kind of, especially in the mainstream, people that aren't really focused in on the health space, is one of the big supplements that people hear a lot about. Another one that is probably our kind of community or our part of the internet is really pushing forward as best we can is magnesium. I think a lot of people now are hearing about magnesium supplementation, how difficult magnesium can be to get from your diet. And the thing with vitamin D is, like, you only hear about vitamin D3, so people only have that one option they don't only have that one option, but you know what I mean? That's kind of clearly the option. But the thing with magnesium is you've got so many different types. It's so much more varied. Like, should I just take it in an electrolyte blend? Should I take magnesium, glycinate? Should I take, magnesium threonate? What's your stance on magnesium supplementation?
Yeah, so magnesium is an important mineral, and it's very difficult to hit the daily recommended amount through food alone. That is because it's actually not abundant in many foods. And you'd have to eat quite a lot of certain foods like, spinach, kale, broccoli, things like that. But most people just don't want to stomach that much of these oxalate-rich vegetables. They have anti-nutrients and things like that. So this is where magnesium supplementation can be really beneficial. And obviously selecting the right form as determined by your goals really does matter. So for example, if you're trying to utilize magnesium for brain function and specifically brain performance and memory formation and enhancing, having a neuroprotective effect, then you're opting for the magnesium L-threonate or magtine. That's one of the better studied versions for brain health. But then you have many different forms. You have magnesium glycinate, as you mentioned before, which is also great. But you're not supplementing the magnesium for the glycine. You're just taking a co-mineral that's attached, a co-amino acid that's attached to the mineral. And magnesium glycinate, typically, it's a highly bioavailable form and gets absorbed very well. And it's also relatively cheap. So it's much better than magnesium oxide. I believe magnesium oxide is one of the worst forms. And then magnesium citrate generally has more of a laxative effect. And so it can irritate the gut a little bit. But there's many different types. I mean, there's magnesium malate, there's magnesium, there's different sucromial magnesium, there's magnesium chloride, there's magnesium L-tartrate, there's different forms. So I guess as a consumer, I mean, the best ones to opt for is, magnesium L-threonate, magnesium bisglycinate, or magnesium chelate. These ones are probably the best.
Awesome. Let's go into some kind of like more specific objectives or specific areas. You mentioned that your original interest in health, really, in what led to supplementation, came from being an athlete, wanting to increase your athletic performance. So, I mean, the term increase your athletic performance is very broad. There's obviously, that's going to be measured by a variety of parameters. It's going to be specific to the athlete, specific to the sport, but I'll leave it open to your interpretation. Could you give us, say, like your top 3 supplements, Lucas, for somebody looking to improve their athletic performance, whatever that means to you?
All right. So I love this question because when I was younger, I always knew that I would eventually be the guy that people would be asking me this exact question, where they'll be like, Lucas, what is the best supplements for athletic performance? And I used to break it down and think, all right, we've got like reaction time, we've got stamina, we've got endurance, we've got flexibility, we've got power, strength, we've got hypertrophy, things like that. We've got recovery. So let's put it down simply. You've sort of mentioned top 3. Well, first and foremost, creatine monohydrate. It's undeniable, very well studied. If I didn't mention it, any supplement expert would be like, Lucas, what are you doing? You have to say the most studied supplement. And so, yes, creatine monohydrate is great for building muscle, strength goes up, increases ATP, 5 grams a day. Loading, you don't need to do a loading phase, but some people find if they do 20 grams a day, that's fine as well. It's not going to blow up your kidneys. That's a myth. It will make you dehydrated, so you need to up your water intake. That better be filtered water, not tap water. And so typically I think creatine monohydrate is great for like specifically strength, power, sprinting, things that are short duration. If we look on the other side though, let's say we're looking at stamina and not being puffed out, specifically related to the sort of, sport that you do yourself, in terms of fighting and martial arts and stuff like that. I would say actovagen. It's a particular. Not many people have even heard of it, but it's really well studied in the Ukraine and Russia. It's a deproteinized calf blood. It's spelled ACTOVEGIN. Actovagen.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, never heard of that. So, yeah, please tell me more about it.
Yeah, so the reason why I like actovagen is basically because its primary function is to increase tissue oxygenation and also something called glucose oxidation. Now, you think about it like this. The presence of oxygen is the absence of disease. Like oxygen is incredibly important, not only for preventing disease, but also for VO2 max, right? Your aerobic conditioning, aerobic performance. Actovagen is unique in the sense that it actually helps the muscle cells utilize oxygen and also helps to convert glucose into ATP. Now, I literally used some this morning before my assault bike workout. Love the assault bike. I think it's the best bang for buck if you're trying to do cardio on a budget. It's a killer. I'd love to share my time. I do a time trial to 4 minutes. It's to do a time trial to 4 miles. And so actovagen really works well for the endurance type activities. So like stamina, endurance, VO2 max, aerobic performance. In terms of dosages, actovagen can be injected or it also can be used orally in tablet format as well. Now we're looking at about 3 tablets, 30 minutes before a workout. And so typically, well, the first time I tried it, I was just not expecting much at all. Like I'm really skeptical of a lot of these lesser known ones, but the first time I tried it, I noticed an immediate acute effect on mental clarity. It's usually how I can tell when something is going to work well for me, is like immediately zero brain fog, just feeling focused on point. And I'm like, hey, there might be something to this. And so that was, I would say from an athletic performance perspective, it ticks the box from the endurance standpoint. Third, I would say, yep.
So I was just going to say with the actovagen, am I saying that right? Actovagen?
Yep, actovagen.
How easy or difficult is it to source?
It's pretty easy. Basically, I mean, one of my favorite vendors is Cosmic Nootropic. They do sell it, and there's a few other Russian vendors that sell it as well. Look, I know there's a lot of doctors that actually prescribe this as a supplement for even during pregnancy. So I know I've got a friend who, he's Russian, and he's obviously his wife is I think Russian as well. And they saw a Russian doctor, and the doctor prescribed the tablets, actovagen tablets, to her while she was pregnant. And I was like, what's with that? Like, what? Usually supplements are really not safe during pregnancy. They usually don't recommend them because it's, can interfere with things. But actovagen was that safe that they literally recommended it to her during pregnancy, to help with building blood. I would say actovagen's like poor man's EPO. If you can't get EPO, this is your next best.
That's your marketing line. Talking about marketing lines. Like nothing is going to tell an athlete to get on actovagen like this is your poor man's EPO. I love it. Sorry, I interrupted you. Third one for athletic performance.
Yeah. All right. So, all right. From a clinical standpoint, astaxanthin. Have you heard of astaxanthin before? So astaxanthin is what makes salmon pink or red. And they believe it's this unique constituent antioxidant that enables them to swim upstream have you seen the videos where salmon, they're able to swim upstream and jump out of the water and things like that? They believe it's because they have this astaxanthin in their muscle cells. Funnily enough, scientists decide to get their hands on this astaxanthin. They test it out, and they notice that in dosages between 8 to 12 milligrams in humans, that it actually does increase cycling performance, endurance, reducing lactate buildup, and also minimizing time to exhaustion. So the clinical research on astaxanthin is very strong beyond just athletic performance. Most people are not using it for that benefit, but it does have that effect. Most people are using it to act as an internal sunscreen. So it actually, funnily enough, man, it actually makes it harder to get sunburnt when you take them. So it acts as a natural, it gives you like this orange, not orange, you don't turn into an Oompa Loompa, you don't turn into a carrot, but it gives you like a bit of an orange tone, tan, like a nice golden tan look, which is cool. And so it's fat soluble, needs to be taken in the morning with food as well. And it does build up in your body like creatine. And I do believe that, it's been really well, it's been very well studied for immune health, cardiovascular health, blood pressure, blood flow. It's pretty remarkable. So astaxanthin, it's spelled ASTA, 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 and then it's XANTHIN, astaxanthin.
That's awesome. Another one that I've never heard of before, and it sounds, really appealing, especially for an athlete such as myself. I mean, combat sports athletes, these are right up my street. Any other notable mentions? I've obviously limited it to 3, but any others that you're particularly fond of?
For athletic performance, I would say it's also worthwhile throwing in some sort of nitric oxide booster. I mean, which guy doesn't want more blood flow? I mean, we're talking muscle pumps, erections, all sorts of beneficial effects. So citrulline malate, can't really go wrong with citrulline malate, but we need to use big doses. We're talking like 6 grams a day of citrulline malate. It is a lot, but I would say that has a beneficial effect. This effect is probably not well understood by most guys, but the benefit is actually really relevant to guys who eat a shitload of protein. So if there's a lot of guys out there that are eating a lot of protein, citrulline actually helps to clear out a byproduct of protein called ammonia. So it actually has a detoxifying effect, and it also reduces DOMS, muscle soreness as well.
Awesome. Another one that sounds to be right up my street. Let's go to, and again, this is nuanced, testosterone. And I suppose one thing I would like us to touch on is obviously testosterone is one thing, free testosterone is another thing, DHT is another thing. I would actually like to specifically focus in on DHT after this. But to start with, let's go with testosterone, quote unquote, in general. What are your favorite supplements when it comes to increasing testosterone?
Yeah, so obviously testosterone is a really important hormone for men if they're looking to achieve, radiant health, energy, vitality, resilience, confidence. I mean, if you're a guy that wants to thrive in today's world, you need high testosterone and high DHT as well. Both of them. I'm glad you mentioned that. So probably a really great resource for any guy. I basically developed what I would say is like the world's best natural testosterone optimization protocol. And I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it's at the website trtfree.com. I did develop like you can definitely add that one in the show notes for the guys, trtfree.com. Within that, I basically break down a full protocol to optimize testosterone without going on TRT or testosterone replacement therapy. So the premise behind that includes a range of different supplements, different biohacks, and lifestyle strategies to optimize testosterone, including supplementation. And one of those supplements, or there's about 4 or so key supplements in that. There's Cistanch, as you mentioned before, definitely has to be part of that stack. Pine pollen tincture is another one. All the dosages and that sort of stuff is outlined in depth in the course, and cycling protocols, things like that. Third is Tonka Ali. And then Shilajit is also there. And then enclomiphene. Not really a supplement, but it's a fertility drug that can increase testosterone as well. So now, if we want to shift gears to DHT, I'd love to sort of discuss a little bit about DHT. Now, DHT is 3 to 10 times more potent than testosterone. There's a lot of myths around DHT, in terms of it just drives hair loss. It's a nasty hormone men need to avoid. High DHT. It's not true, man. I mean, if DHT was really that bad, then a lot of 18-year-olds out there would have prostate cancer, because DHT is high during that time of your life. And what's more problematic is having high estrogen, and DHT actually balances out estrogen in a sense. So if you have high estrogen below DHT, you're going to feel highly estrogenic. You're not going to feel good. But if you have high DHT and high estrogen, DHT will trump because it blocks the estrogen receptors. So DHT is critical, man. And the good thing is there's quite a number of ways to increase DHT, and there's plenty of good strategies. I'll go through a few of them. And funnily enough, a lot of them end in INE. So glycine, creatine, caffeine, nicotine, thiamine. I wish sprinting. Weightlifting, boron, sorghum. These are all different compounds that can actually increase 5-alpha reductase and DHT production. So if any guy is looking to optimize testosterone, they need to also understand that when they try and boost testosterone, don't do it by blocking DHT, because you can increase testosterone by taking finasteride, the drug that helps hair loss. It will increase your testosterone, but at the cost of your DHT, and that is not a good thing at all.
Yeah, I've heard athletes before talking about how basically, they don't want rises in DHT increase because it's going to mean a reduction in testosterone, and they want high testosterone. I've seen a lot. I think it's kind of the flavor of the month, so to speak, at the moment, DHT, which is great to say because as you've just outlined there, it's so important, and it's basically what makes a man a man. Like we think about testosterone, obviously testosterone is vital, but really it's the DHT component which is responsible for your androgens, which is really going to make you feel like a thriving man. Everything from libido to your confidence to your mental resilience. There's a lot more education coming about on this now. So yeah, that's really good to hear. And it sounds like with the DHT, it's kind of a lot of your more popular supplements anyway, things like glycine, caffeine, more than half the world's on nicotine every day. I mean, if you're, don't smoke a vape, hoping you're going to increase your DHT, that's not the right way to go about it. But yeah, like easily accessible supplements for people to take to increase it. So yeah, that's really great to hear. What about, I suppose this is kind of covered by testosterone and DHT, but supplements specifically for libido?
Yeah, so this is where I would definitely say number one is the new supplement that I just released. Katwaba is going to be a great one. We will be able to ship it. We're looking at a distribution partner in the UK at the moment. So a lot of your UK listeners will be able to actually get their hands on my product. So definitely looking into Catawaba. It's a great one for supporting, healthy libido. Speaking of blood flow, this is where something like pycnogenol, it's pine bark extract, can be quite beneficial for blood flow. But then looking at things like pomegranate, so pomegranate extract or even just like pomegranate juice, man, that stuff actually has a great effect on blood flow. Just consistently drinking that, man, like talking half a cup a day regularly. Actually, there's a bit of an experiment guys can try. If they take half a cup of pomegranate before bed, the juice, very good chance they'll wake and then also if they ice their balls, very, very good chance they'll wake up with morning wood. Highly possible and likely.
Brilliant. Are you familiar with a podcast called The Fighter and the Kid?
Who's the host?
It's Brendan Schaub. It's or I say an MMA podcast. Like he was a former UFC fighter, and a lot of their content centers around MMA, so a lot of MMA fans watch it. But they it's kind of like a comedy show basically. I just asked that because I didn't know if you knew that you'd been featured on there recently over the past few days. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. Obviously, these guys are not people in the know about the health space. That someone had found, like the producer must have found a clip of you talking about icing your testicles to increase testosterone, and they're basically laughing at that. They're like, "Who is this guy? This snake oil salesman?" Obviously, they aren't aware of the data and the mechanisms behind it. But yeah. Oh, well, there you go. You're on the Fight
Wow.
the Kid. One of the biggest podcasts in the world. Yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah. I was going to say, despite their jest in what they were saying in relation to what you were talking about, hopefully it's sparked a lot of people's interest as to, oh wow, icing my testicles, can that really increase my testosterone? I suppose, go into the mechanism behind that whole thing.
Yeah,
it will be alien to people that haven't heard it before.
Yeah, of course. So obviously, when guys hear about that practice, obviously, like, I've got an ice pack literally right here. That's from a couple of hours ago. So when guys hear about the practice, immediately they sort of laugh. They're like, "Oh, how the hell can icing the testes actually increase testosterone? Like, that's bullshit. That doesn't work." Well, let me tell you this. I've seen enough data, enough blood test results over my time, and I've been in this space for 3 years, and I've had enough blood test scores pre and post icing with no other changes to their lifestyle, and their total testosterone goes up by, on average, about 150 nanograms per deciliter, which is quite a lot. But that has to be done for a good 12 weeks, right? You can't just ice your balls, go do a blood test tomorrow morning, and bang, all of a sudden your testosterone's through the roof. It needs to be a consistent practice. It needs to be about 2 to 3 times a day for 10 minutes. It's really not that hard. It's literally free. You can do it on your way to the gym, or if you're driving to the gym, on your way to the gym, whilst you're working at home. I mean, most guys out there are wearing underwear that's too tight, causing heat in the testes. And anytime the balls heat up, that basically hinders fertility and also testosterone production. Jumping into a sauna is the worst thing a guy can do for fertility and even testosterone. So I would say ice baths, on the other hand, are great. They're the opposite. They're great for improving testicular functioning. All right. So in terms of the science behind it, the theories behind it, basically what happens is the ice causes massive amounts of vasoconstriction, so the blood vessels constrict, and that's followed by a rebound vasodilation, which brings new and fresh oxygen and blood flow to the testes. It's a highly vascular area. So this new and fresh oxygen, blood flow, and supply actually helps with increasing. Basically, there's quite a lot of testosterone that gets stuck in a certain part within the testes that not a lot of people are familiar with. I'm pretty sure it's called the interstitial space in the testes, and that can actually lead to an increase in interstitial space, that's what it's called. It's the area between the seminiferous tubules, which contain the Leydig cells, and the blood vessels. So basically, it's a really critical area. And so when we improve blood flow to that area, it helps to mobilize that testosterone.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that the increases in overall testosterone could be so significant. And like you said, for something that's free, that's like pretty easy to do. The only barrier to it is literally the consistency of making sure you do it every day. That's that's really interesting. And I think that's a great cost-free lever for people to at least try, right? And interesting what you said about the sauna as well. Obviously, we hear the sauna touted to have so many benefits. I was aware of the detrimental impacts it has on fertility. I didn't know it could really have a detrimental effect on testosterone as well. Like, what's kind of your stance then on sauna? I suppose relating it, to my use. I get in the sauna a few times a week on average. Would you be recommending that for athletes, or do you think the juice isn't worth the squeeze when it comes to the detriments you could be looking at in testosterone versus the cardiovascular gains, recovery gains, etc.?
Yeah, I would say very easy way to offset the potential damaging or dangerous effects of sauna usage is just bring an ice back. You don't have, bring it into the sauna so that your whole body can get hot. That's fine, as long as your balls don't get too hot. If you keep your balls cool, then there's going to be zero harm from sauna usage, and you can get all the benefits without the risk. Remember that historically, like many hundreds and thousands of years ago, we used to rely upon heat was actually considered a contraceptive for men. So they would actually heat up the testes to reduce sperm count in men. But in terms of overall benefits, man, sauna usage is great, provided that you're rehydrating, remineralizing. You're not overdoing it. If you're training really hard and then saunaing every single day after a workout, and then you're not eating well and you're not hydrating well, it just becomes too stressful for the body, and it's not a big fan. Whereas at least with ice baths, I wouldn't say it's as taxing on the body. You're not going to lose minerals from an ice bath. You lose minerals more so. You lose minerals from sauna usage.
Yeah, pros and cons to both, I guess, and it's going to depend on someone's specific goals and the person themselves as well. I guess, as with anything, some people may be more susceptible to detrimental effects from a sauna. Some people getting in an ice bath, it may just throw their cortisol so out of whack that it's just not beneficial for them at all. So, as with any practice and any supplements, it's trial and error, isn't it? Let's talk about that a bit more. Obviously, like we've talked about the benefits of supplements, and I'm conscious we've only got a few minutes left, but if you could speak about side effects, obviously that's something that comes part of the course, and the more potential potency of a supplement, the greater the potential side effects as well. Talk to me about how people can mitigate side effects, like what kind of practices people should be employing to ensure to ensure that they're dealing with side effects the best, and they're not, taking on side effects unnecessarily or more than they should be.
Sure. So definitely looking at one principle that will help minimize side effects, which is minimum effective dosage. Now, what that means is start low and work your way up, not start high and work your way down. Because if you start low, your body can at least become a little bit more aware of the compound, and you're unlikely to experience immediate side effects. If you jump right in on, let's say, a complete virgin to creatine goes and takes 20 grams of creatine all at once for the first time, probably going to get GI side effects. They're going to get some diarrhea or bloating or things like that. But if they started at just like 1 gram and work their way up to like 5 grams or even 20 grams, it's good to start at the minimum effective dosage to minimize side effects. And second to that is we also want to be cycling these compounds. Not all supplements need to be cycled, but taking intermittent breaks, like typically 6 weeks on, 2 weeks off. That's a general, when I'm working with clients or consulting and building protocols, I typically will factor that in, like how to cycle their specific protocols depending upon their goals. But it's a common question I get asked a lot by, clients that I work with is Lucas, like I'm taking this, and this, like, how do I best utilize it? How do I cycle it? What dosages should I use? That sort of stuff. So definitely understanding the dosage is really important.
Would you even cycle creatine monohydrate?
Typically, I mean, creatine monohydrate is one of those ones you can actually use prolonged, 5 grams a day, every day. If your kidneys are fine, you're going to get blood tests, every quarter or every 6 months. So just checking on your kidney function should be fine for most people.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm somebody that constantly needs to remind myself, minimum effective dose, start low, go high. Like the way my brain is wired, ultra ambitious, just wanting to get, the maximum effect. I'm like, yeah, this supplement sounds great. I'm going to take as much of it as I can without it being dangerous to me. But the smart thing to do, as you said, is to absolutely start with a minimum effective dose, and then you can work your way up from there. Just be patient. If you don't see results on the minimum effective dose, you can always bring it up, and that is going to be better than taking a dose that is too much for you, having negative side effects, and then having to experience those before you come down. To finish off for us then, Lucas, if you could, I kind of like to ask like a kind of a more of an existential or overarching question at the end of each episode to a guest. And one thing I tend to do with people like yourself doing the work that you do, the world we live in today, it is so difficult to navigate when it comes to being healthy. We're kind of attacked from every angle, whether that's intentional or not. What is your message to the everyman, the everywoman, on how they can be healthy in a world that is basically trying to do the opposite to them?
Yeah, man, that's great question. I would say try to go back as close as possible to the way Mother Nature developed it. If it's man-made, synthetic, chances are it's not going to be something that you can. It depends what it is, but in terms of like nutrition, for example, less processed, less packaged is going to be generally better. Whole foods, actual real foods, real meats, organ meats, that sort of stuff is going to be beneficial. And then also minimizing toxin exposure. So that includes the water that you drink every single day could be slowly killing you if you're drinking fluoride-rich water. And if you're brushing your teeth with fluoride as well, you're literally making yourself dumber every single day because the fluoride is a neurotoxin. So look, there's many different strategies, but I would say, like tune into my content. Check out my YouTube channel. There's literally over 1,000 videos on free biohacks and supplement suggestions, things like that. So if anyone wants to check that out, they can definitely check that out at Boost Your Biology on YouTube. There's some great free content there for most people.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Lucas. I learned a great deal today. Just as well, let everyone know where they can go to find you on Instagram and all those platforms, and where they can try out your supplements.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. It's fun chatting, man. So I'd say if guys want to sort of check out my content, definitely head over to the YouTube channel. That's Boost Your Biology. Go and subscribe. There's great content there. Also my Instagram. If they just search my name, Lucas, and then surname is Aoun, they'll see my business page, ergogenic_health. And otherwise they can check, they can literally Google search boost your biology. And then for my supplement brand, it's in before sups. So inb4sups.com.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Lucas.